All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Climb, the StarCraft 2 podcast focused on the Below Masters blue collar leagues. I am your host, Lord Cranial.
Hello, my name is Dan. I go by Captain Hoppa. Each episode, we will dive into the ups and downs of the Diamond Ladder experience while searching for the secrets to get good.
Yeah, we're just three normal players who are working on climbing to that next rung of the ladder, fiending after that Masters border, as always. We hope you enjoy the discussion tonight.
Today's topic, we're going to be focusing on tournaments for all players on the StarCraft 2 ladder. Regardless of your skill level, there is probably a tournament for you. And we're going to go over things like how to mentally prepare and, just anything competition related.
Yeah, but before we talk about any of that stuff tonight, we have a very special guest with us and our first guest. So we're both incredibly excited. She is a Diamond 1 Terran player and also a D2 Protoss player. I'm pretty sure it's D2.
Almost. Not quite there yet, but I've been like along the borders. But yeah, thank you though. I hope one day to be a Diamond 2 Protoss.
Yeah, she's kicked both my ass and Captain Happa's ass before. She is a fantastic player and also a fantastic person. We are so happy to have our friend here tonight.
Well, thank you very much for the generous introduction. It's so great to be here. I've listened to all your podcasts so far and really enjoyed the insight from inside NSGSL. So yeah, it's great to be on here. Thanks so much for the invite.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
no
and again,
problem.
we're thrilled to have you, Shuuyi. And so before we hop into our topic, I will ask you, how's the ladder going?
Ladder's been okay. I haven't really had the time to grind it as much as I would like, but it's had its ups and downs. I'm glad I'm kind of out of my like MMR low. You know how we all have like our highs and lows. I'm kind of like in the middle right now, but I think it just depends on the day, honestly, and my opponent more than anything else.
What do you think's giving you the most trouble these days?
It's interesting because lately my TVT has been by far the worst, and it's not even close. Up until recently, I think I've been pretty even. Like I usually am happy to have around a 50% win rate for all matchups, but lately the Terrans, man, they're just crazy. They cheese me nonstop. I think right now my TVT win rate is like 36%. I did increase it a little bit, but yeah, no, it's back down to 36%, and I don't even know what to tell you. Like I think part of it is the cheese and part of it is the Reaper Hellion micro being really difficult at the beginning of the game, and that can kind of set the stage for how the game turns out. And of course, I don't know, it's just one of those matchups that requires very precise multitasking and micro, and yeah, you can be punished hard in seconds if any of that doesn't go well.
Well, and there's also like a lot of wildness in it, right? Like it can get weird pretty fast from what I've seen. Again, I don't play TVT, but it looks like
Yeah.
something.
Oh yeah, it can get wild, especially if your opponents are just insane, which 100% of my opponents have been lately, it feels like.
Yeah,
And
it's always it's so hard to really do anything in TVT because the early game is always just some form of insanity. It kind of feels like it stabilizes in the mid game, and then you're just right back to the insanity in the late game. Plus, you always get the people who are going to like mass Raven Widow mine you or just like one base rush you. Because trust me, I know I'm there. I'm there with you. I promise.
Yeah, it's weird because I pride myself as a honorable macro Terran, but then any Terran I meet on ladder is just bringing out all sorts of cheeses that I've never even imagined before. And I'm like, why are you doing this to me? I thought we were on the same side.
yes, I think it's always, you have an expectation sometimes for certain types of games, and the latter rarely gives it to you the way that you expect it.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I remember a long time ago we were talking about something like that, and you were saying like you can never really expect ladder to be stable because you never know what to get from ladder. It could be cheese, it could be normal, it could be, totally unpredictable. So yeah, I encounter that every day. So I think I've definitely detached my self-worth quite a bit from my MMR or how I'm doing on a particular day because it just feels so random and chaotic sometimes.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I forget if you said this already, but did you take a break for a little bit as well, or has it just been like less consistent as far as ladder
Um,
goes?
yeah, just not consistent. Every month I have something going on. Like lately I just moved, so took
Yeah, that's
a
right.
about a week off for that. And before that I think I did I have a trip or something? I don't even remember. Everything's a blur. But I just never have enough time to play that I would like because between like being tired a lot and just working full time, it's yeah, it's tough to get in the number of games that I would like to.
Yeah, I definitely feel that, and sometimes it's like, oh, I'm learning something, and then whatever you have to attend to, you have to attend to, and then you probably will have to relearn that again, you know?
Yeah, then
Yeah.
you come back to Protoss players who like rush to carrier and Colossi, and you're just like, I don't remember this being a thing. What happened?
Yeah, that's very true. It's like you learn something very specific for a little while, then you don't see it for just long enough to forget how to deal with it, and then it comes right back again. It's like, "Oh my god, not this again."
Yeah, so you said TVT's most of your hangups right now. How are the other matchups feeling?
The other matchup's okay, TVT is always TVP is always TVP, like one of us is raging at the other. Either you're doing super well or super terribly. And TVZ has been amazingly good. I did dabble in mech for a while, and after realizing how fragile it is to early cheese and muta transitions, I've actually favored doing bio more. And actually, I've had like a 77% win rate in TVZ, which I don't even know. I guess just playing in tournaments and like dealing with all sorts of cheese has helped me become really well protected against easy ways that I usually die to Zerg cheese. But yeah,
Yeah, no,
somehow.
I know that your TVZ is very strong. I have experienced it, and yeah, I mean it's cool that you're going back to bio. Like that's interesting. How was like the mech flavor? How did that whole experience go? Because I know it's just beat by beat. It's very different.
Yeah, oh, mech is so different. It's like a whole other wing of Terran that I can't believe I waited so long to try out. It is incredibly strong versus Zerg, and it almost feels OP sometimes. Like I think the highest rated players I've ever beaten was Zergs with mech. I think I might have beaten a 4.3 or 4.4K Zerg with just like a straight up mech macro game. And yeah, if they don't expect it, or if you just get away with a whole bunch of kills through either BCs or Hellions, then it's pretty hard to come back from that. And as long as you keep active on the map with the harass, and yeah, once you get that 200 mech army, it's like it feels pretty invincible sometimes. So definitely very powerful. It has its place, but I definitely like shorter games as well. So that's why I'm trying to trying to move away from that. But I think it's good to learn both for sure because you want to have different tricks up your sleeve.
Yeah, I've definitely beaten one of my master's friends with mech one time, and it was one of the greatest feelings in my life. I was so excited. I didn't want to, show that to him because he was probably not happy that he just got beat by a D2 Terran playing mech. But yeah, it's definitely a different pace. It's a different feel, and it's if you're a bio Terran, you should definitely like give mech a try. Like once or twice. Like you might not necessarily like it because, it's very slow to build up, but it can net you some wins. It's pretty good.
I think it's hilarious that you mentioned how you like the shorter games, like the non-mech games, because as a Zerg who's on the other side of mech, that's pretty much my biggest complaint every time I have to play mech is as soon as I scout that it's mech, I'm like taking like two extra bases and like getting like 20 more drones, and I'm just like, well, this is gonna take another 15 minutes minimum. Minimum, it's gonna take another 15 minutes for this game to end, win or lose.
Exactly, yeah, and being a bio Terran who plays against like in TVT, I tend to prefer bio as well. Whenever I scout that my opponent is going mech, I'm like, oh my god, you've got to be kidding me. And when I feel that rage from scouting that my opponent is going mech, I kind of feel sympathy towards Zergs. I'm like, you know what, I should do my part and bring less mech into the world. It would probably be good for my karma in the universe or something.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sure
it's
you, I'm sure you could put together a supercut of every time I am playing a ZVT and realize it's mech, like this certain, like it's Blue Flame or something like, and it's just like, all right, it's time to enact our anti-mech protocol and complain about it for at least 5 minutes while I'm still playing.
well, here's the thing though. Here's the thing is that Terrans also have to deal with mech. We don't have fun dealing with mech either. We have the same reaction. We put down an extra base. It's just like, oh god, this is going to be another 15 minutes at least. And then,
Exactly.
you're gonna sit there and you're gonna mess up and you're gonna throw away like your entire bio squad to a bunch of tanks. I mean, like we understand it's frustrating. That's why we do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. It's painful to receive it, which is why I'm like, yeah, it's good to know how to do that, but I think I'll stick to bio. I like the quick wins or quick losses. Just I barely have enough time to play as it is, so let's not turn like 8 games into 4 mech games.
Yeah, and Bio has such a different tempo and feel and momentum swings, and I mean Mech still has that, but it's just different. It's a
Yeah.
different whole setup, and that's good. How's PVT? Just real quick, if you want to. I mean, I know it's whatever, but
My
I'm
my
curious.
TVP. It's fine actually. I think everyone who knows me knows that the thing I hate most about anything StarCraft related is proxy void rays, and I think on average that happens to me maybe 1 in 2 or 1 in 1 ladder session, and like I've actually been it lately in a tournament, so that actually gave me a lot more confidence. But otherwise, yeah, I'm really working on the rage that that particular build causes. But otherwise, the matchup feels really comfortable. I feel really evenly matched going into players at my level in TVP. Yeah, I just really hate Proxy Void, but I'm working on it.
That's good. I mean, it's definitely a nice feeling when you have that comfort where it's like, okay, it could be this or it could be this, and you still feel kind of prepared regardless of what it's actually going to be, and that's always a nice feeling.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, I don't know if you have any other general ladder thoughts or if you have any highlight, low light games that you'd like to get into.
Sure, yeah. Since most of my high emotion games have been TVT lately, I'll focus on that. So
Sure.
we can start with a low light. I think you were actually watching part of this game, Captain Hoppa. Um, it's one of those games where you load into the game and it feels like a normal game, you know. Well, it wasn't super normal. I think they Marauder Hellion rushed me. So
Oh
after I defended that, I
no.
was like, all right, we got this. And after that, I see that they're natural as a planetary. So I'm like, oh my god, like it's one of those things that's so tilting because like you should never be able to get away with a planetary at the natural. That's just the stupidest thing I've ever seen. But whenever you see that, you know they're going for something ridiculous, like Mass Raven or Mass BCs with Widow Mines scattered across the map. And sure enough, it was Mass BCs. So I followed the protocol that my friend Paranoid Monk recommended, which is just to stop all bioproduction and just mass Vikings only and tanks. So I did that and I defended the first 2 or 3 waves of BCs and I thought, okay, they're dead for sure. Because I was on like 5 bases and they were on 2. But little did I know they had 2 hidden bases. And even though I killed most of their stuff, like I was like, why are they still in the game? They just kept on warping BCs into my base over and over, and my Vikings were on the other side of the map trying to kill them, right? So I was like, oh my god. So I walk home, but then by the time I get home, my main base and my natural's taken out. And then I'm like trying to rebuild. And I'm like, why are they still in the game? But then I find their hidden bases and I'm like, oh my god, like we're either even or they're even ahead. And it was just one of those games where I'm like getting more and more mad by the second, but the game is already like 28 minutes by this point. And I'm like, well, this is just terrible. Why would you want to do this to other people? Like, who hurt you? And I just, it was so upsetting after that. I didn't want to play for a long time. But after, as I usually do when I'm totally stumped, I post a replay in the NSGSL chat. And one of the NSGSL gods, usually Cha or Sappho, will watch the replay and school me on all the terrible mistakes I've made, so I don't make it again. And Chet said something like, "Make your own BCs," and I was like, you know what? That's right. Like, I should get over that pride of like not making the OP unit and just like just make them. Because if they're gonna teleport on my base, like I don't want to fly my slow Vikings all the way home. It's just so stupid, you know. So yeah, I'm gonna learn that tip in the future. It's just so dumb because it's like each time you meet one of these cheese strategies, it's like, okay, I got this tip, and then you try it. It works like 80%. You still lose, and then it's like, okay, well, next time, now that I have the rest of the 20% on how to solve this, next time I hope I'll actually make it work. So yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic for my next BC abusive opponent.
Yeah. I do remember this. I think I missed like the first like 10 minutes of the game, but I got the gist of it, catching the last 20 or whatever. And it was just BCs jumping around, and it's like that total like feeling of helplessness where you're like, this is a good trade, this is a good trade, this is a good trade, and then they just leave and you're like, I guess it wasn't. And then the other thing I'll say that is hilarious, and I also relate to this a lot, is when you find a hidden base that like they've clearly been mining it for like over 5 minutes, it's one of the worst feelings in the game because it's also
Oh
just
yeah.
like this would have been so easy to punish, but that window has closed. Like,
Yeah.
and you know that that damage, that economic damage of them mining off of that has already done its job. And then I also do this too as an impatient Zerg, where it's like, if I know they're on two bases, I'm just like, yeah, we're gonna trade. Who cares? Whatever. And then it's like, no, they're mining a lot more than you think, and that exponentially makes your own confidence in the game state worse, right? Because like you're like, oh, it's fine, and then it's not fine. And
I've fallen into that trap so many damn times. Like you sit there, you see they're on two bases, just like it's fine. I'm just gonna contain them. I'm just gonna pick off what I can, and eventually I have to win because they have to run out of money. But then at some point you're just like, they have a lot of stuff and they're still producing. I don't understand what's going on here. Then they roll across you. You watch the replay and you see that one little dot off in the corner. It's just like, I knew it. I should have known that. Like it's gotten to a point where it's just like, if I even suspect at this point, I'm sending two Marines around the edges of the map. I'm like, I'm not being caught by this again.
yeah, I
Yeah.
totally relate to that too, because it's also like I'll go through phases where I'm really paranoid about hidden bases, and like I check like every 30 seconds because I've been burned recently. But then there's other times where it doesn't even, the thought of it doesn't even cross my mind until I've traded like 3 times. And then I'm
Ladders
like, we should look.
Ladder is brilliant that way because it lulls you into a false sense of complacency, and then you get screwed over and over and over again. It's a vicious cycle, I'm telling you guys.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. It just hurts because it's like I thought I already learned this lesson and I thought that this wouldn't happen to me again. But then, 1,000 games later and then same stupid strategy and it's like, oh, I let them get away with another hidden base. It's just one of those things where it's like, man, I wish I slept an extra like hour or something so that I would have thought to even think about that. 'Cause yeah, it's just so tilting when they get away with something that just should not work.
Yeah. To pull it back a little bit to this more specific game, you said what would be the biggest change that you would make? You said you were considering maybe BCs yourself, or just a different response,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, I think
that's
the Mass Viking is a really solid response because it basically defends anytime they warp in, which inevitably they do with that strategy. But then since I'm mining so much and I had enough money to make my own BCs, I think in retrospect in that game I definitely should have just made my own. And also, of course, checked for hidden bases for, they shouldn't have been only on two bases for that amount of time and it wouldn't explain all the BCs they were making either.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's a tough game to be in, but I think we've all had games very similar to that.
Yeah. Funny how a lot of the lowlights involve BCs or mass BCs.
Oh, I mean, I've had a large portion of mine being surprise BCs.
Mine too. Mine too.
Yeah. Just one of
Um,
those things.
so if you don't have anything else for that game, we can go into your highlight if you want.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I'll keep this one a little shorter. It was also a TVT on Beckett, and the opening of the game just did not work out for me at all. I think it was one of those builds where they did the reactor Reapers with Hellions, so instead of my 5 units of 3 Reapers and 2 Hellions, they had, I think, 6 Reapers and 3 Hellions. So, and a medevac and a Cyclone. So I pretty much felt like I was dead. I think they killed like 8 SCVs or something like at like 3 minutes in the game. So I was like, oh my god, another TVT loss. And I think I lost like 8 TVTs in a row that day. And so I was just like, oh, but this was an unranked game. And for some reason, whenever I play unranked, I tend to play so much better. So I was like, whatever, like it doesn't count anyway. So I'm just going to keep powering through. And then I just did my build and it was behind the whole game by a significant amount. I scanned, I saw they were going tank bio as well. So I was like, okay. And then I saw they were like beginning to move out on the map, but I was like, well, I have to do something. So I gathered as much tank bio as I could with my Ravens. I saw they were beginning to move out. I was like, no, me first. So I stemmed into their natural, but they were at their third. And so I set up everything and they couldn't get up because between the natural and the third on Beckett, there's this very narrow choke, which if you try to squeeze through, especially against siege tanks, you're just gonna have a bad time. So yeah, they just meat grinded their entire army into my tanks, and then I won the game from there. I was like, wow, I won that game. I thought I was dead for sure, but the beauty of TVT is
Nice.
there's often room for a comeback if you don't give up mentally. So yeah, unfortunately, I think I go into a lot of TVTs since it's my worst matchup, like mentally scared or already pre-defeated. But yeah,
Did
something about
you sorry, did you think that that move did that move feel uncharacteristic for you to just kind of shove in there, or is that normal?
I think I more and more that I'm comfortable playing the game and like realizing good opportunities. I try to take advantage of situations where they're out of position or this is a good chance for me. And in that game, I thought this was my only chance in this game, right? Like they're about to move out, they're not here, so like this is the only way I even have a chance to win this game right now.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, other than that, I would have if I didn't have that window, like I probably they would have sieged up at my natural and killed me because they had like way bigger army since they were so ahead.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was like my amazing opportunity to win that game and I took it and yeah, I felt really good because it was a game I had no right winning and I think games that you win where you're super far behind in the beginning definitely feel the best to win.
Oh yeah. Well, and being down a little bit too and going for like the high risk, high reward move and it works is always just fantastic and you just sometimes you just got to wedge yourself in there, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that was satisfying and it paid off.
That's great. That's great to hear. Fantastic stuff. All right. Will, am I asking you on your ladder session now?
Yeah, you can ask me.
Unless you have any other thoughts there, Shuyi.
Oh no, I'm good. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. It's always good to hear, and it's also like I don't know, it's exciting to have a third person that we can ask about ladder. And again, if you want to ask Will stuff, feel free to hop in.
Sounds good.
How's it going, buddy?
It's actually hasn't been going too bad. I've been enjoying my ladder sessions recently. I'm still kind of in the process of shaking off some of the rust from my break. Some of my some of my controls and just kind of general macro are still a little bit not where they used to be, but I still feel like I'm doing pretty solid. I'm getting at least, a 50% win rate like each stream, which is, that feels pretty good. It's not as great as, like a 60% or you like win all of your games or something, but it's nice to kind of have that like you're kind of evening out, you're coming out of a slump. So you kind of start to feel optimistic about everything. But
Yeah.
yeah, as I've been, continuing to practice and, constantly warming up and whatnot, I've been feeling a little bit better about my prospects on ladder, and I'm trying to reaffirm to myself that I can get the Diamond 1 badge by the end of the year, but we'll still have to see.
Yeah. It's always nice too when you start that feeling of like getting things to click again, or like things that clicked in the past, and like you're like, oh, I'm doing this automatically again. Like it's really satisfying, and that's good. I'm glad to hear it. Are there any particular matchups that, are causing you anguish more so than others, or what?
So oddly enough, it's TVZ recently. Like that has traditionally been my bread and butter. Or
Sure.
well, it kind of flip-flops between TVT and TVZ, but TVZ has been my worst matchup recently, and it's hard to pinpoint to one thing, but recently a lot of Zergs on ladder have been they've been doing like this kind of like Ling Bane flood type of deal, but they're doing it off
Yeah.
of really low worker counts, and it's driving me crazy because it's hard to like play my style, get out onto the map and do a lot of pressure. And there's a lot of threats of like run bys. You could lose your Hellions. You could just like your entire 1-1 push could get wiped. So I'm feeling like very hesitant right now going into a TVZ. Like I almost feel mentally defeated whenever I start to hop into one at this point.
Yeah. Well, I think that's also pretty tough for the Terran to scout those kind of builds sometimes, just because it's like, unless you're in a mineral line, like looking at the drones, sometimes you can still be surprised by those, by like, oh, it's 28 lings here.
And it's
Um,
also funny to go back into the replays and like watch the Zerg and you see suddenly like like 24 lings pop into the queue. I'm just like, no, you should be droning right now. What are you doing?
yeah, I mean, it's something too where it's like, it's a choice. Like,
It really
like
is, yeah.
85% of every Zerg will hold down the drone key for like the first like 6 minutes of the game, right? But it's a choice, and it can pay off. It can also get shut down really hard, but um, the challenge is in knowing.
Yeah, I'm glad that we had our practice matches because it gave me a little bit of just kind of trying to deal with that like Ling Flood style. So yeah, I've been feeling a little bit better since our practice matches, but it's still kind of my heart is gripped with fear.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I have things to say about our practice matches too, so I don't know.
Oh, dude.
I don't know how much I'm gonna ask you about it, but yeah, no, hey, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, they were good
Um,
matches. You were on fire.
thanks, buddy. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I don't know if you have anything else, or if you want to go into highlights or lowlights.
We can hop into highlights and lowlights. I guess I can start with the low light because it was a Zerg who did
Uh-huh.
he went up to 65 drones and just like Ling Bang flood. Um, but he kind of went into it a little bit earlier than I expected. So for those of you who haven't seen me play a TVZ before, I really, really enjoy my Hellbat 1-1 pushes. I like to, try and keep the Hellions safe. I try to pressure as much as I can, but it's scary out there. The map is dark and full of dangers. But I was trying to get as much pressure in as I could. I was scared of rotating them because I really didn't want to lose them, and I thought I saw a lot of lings out on the field. At some point, I just wound up losing most of them anyways. Somewhere out on like the left side of Jagannatha. So
Mhm.
I was just like, well, shit. I still have to do my 1-1 push. I don't really have a choice. So I push out across the map with like the two Hellbats that I saved. We get to the other side of the map and he just breaks me. It was bad. Like, he basically destroyed everything. I got out with a couple of Marines and then took them home. And I'm just like, well, the only thing I can do now is kind of sit back and try to, get up a decent force and then, try to push across the map again. When realistically, I probably should have just been weathering the storm for a little while.
Yeah.
And I was sending out a Widow Mine drop just to do a little bit of damage, and I didn't notice it, but there was a massive white blob just kind of moving across the map next to my drop. And at one point, the opponent even clicked on my medevac and started following it, and I still didn't notice.
Oh no.
But he or they took all of the lings and banes that they had, ran them right into my natural, killed my natural orbital, and then ran into
No.
my main base. And I was just like, I can't believe this. This is BS. And I GG'd out. I was so annoyed with that. I was just like, if you given me a little bit of time, maybe I could have made something happen. But
Yeah, I
he
mean,
snuck in the door.
the surprise factor. I mean, it kind of goes both ways in ZVT. Like, I've been surprised the other way too, where it's like, oh, Terran's like sieged at my third base, and he came out of nowhere. But it can also definitely happen the same way with just lings being everywhere. And I know for me as a Zerg too, when you know the Terran is like a little like lacking on vision or like lacking on map control, like you feel so great because you're like,
Oh yeah.
this guy is gonna be tucked in his little corner. He's gonna be staying at his third base. He's gonna be wondering whether he should push or not. And like, it always feels really good as a Zerg, and I understand how scary it must be as a Terran.
Yeah, well, like you said, it's about map control. So you really there's certain phases that you go through with that build. Like your first phase is that you're trying to maintain map control with the Hellions. And once the Banshees come out, they're going to kind of add to that effort. They're going to be, sniping drones where they can, sniping creep tumors, just whatever they can get their hands on. They're going to try and kill it. After that, you get into your 1-1 push, and then you better have map control as you're pushing across, or you're going to have a really bad time because you don't know where their army is. But yeah, losing the first few Hellions was probably the initial nail in the coffin, honestly. And it's one of those things where the moment that happens, you're just like, well, I guess we're just going to sit in our base then.
Yeah, and so what would be the major change that you would make if you could?
Well, the major change would be to watch the damn mini map.
Just see it, look
See
upon it with
it.
your eyes. Yeah, no, that's a
Yeah.
good one.
Because it was like when I went back and watched it while I was doing some replay analysis, I was just like dumbfounded because it was a massive blob of Zerglings and Banelings. And like I have my opponent set to the color white, so it's just like it contrasts against Jagannatha. So I'm just like, how did I not see this? I'm usually decent at doing this kind of stuff,
Yeah,
but it's like keeping an eye on that would have been priority number one. Being more active with my Hellions and being better at like rotating around, sniping creep tumors where I can, kind of just putting pressure onto the creep so that, the opponent has to keep their Zerglings at home and, potentially have to sacrifice them in order to get to my Hellions. Um, Another thing would probably be a little bit more active with my Banshees because they kind of got some drone kills and then didn't really do anything else for the rest of the match.
yeah,
And yeah, I probably also closed my front door because that was annoying.
yeah. Well, that'll happen.
It
It's an
does.
unfortunate game, but happens to the best of us. And um, yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm sure you'll
Uh,
bounce back.
well, I mean, it's going to happen again. Eventually, every once in a while, I get killed that way. Every Terran has been killed that way. So it's going to be more of a matter of try to keep it happening less.
Oh yeah. All right. You want to get in your highlight here?
Yeah, so I actually had trouble picking my highlight. It was between a TVT and a TVP. I decided to go with the TVT because when I went back and looked at the TVP, I thought to myself like, all of this like it was a good game, but I didn't feel particularly special about it. So for this TVT, it was on Oxide,
Uh-huh.
and that's a fun map to play a TVT on. Oh, it's so fun. The vision blockers, the tanks just suddenly
I've
popping out of
I've
nowhere.
I've fought tanks on that map before, so it's okay. I understand.
um, so whenever I play TVT, I tend to kind of mix up my builds on ladder. I couldn't particularly tell you why. Just some days I'm feeling like, oh, I'll do 3 Reaper 2 Hellion today, or oh, I'll just Reaper fast expand. Every once in a while I just kind of switch it up. Today was,
Sure.
a Reaper fast expand off of a double gas. And I don't remember which pro was doing this, but there's been one pro that would get a Hellion and then follow it up with a mine. And Oxide is surprisingly good for that because you can hide the mine, in the weeds and stuff, and as they're coming across, they're gonna trip it. So I was doing that, and I kept 2 Reapers kind of active on the map, looking around, making sure that he wasn't trying to sneak anything by me. And then I saw the opponent sending their 3 Reaper 2 Hellion at me. So I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna, I'll put the mine, right at the top of the ramp at my natural. I'll load my bunker up. It's fine. I see this coming. It's all good. Lo and behold, he tries to run by the bunker, doesn't see the mine, trips it, and then like opponent doesn't even get a single kill on my SCV line. Not a single kill. I was so psyched that I just bopped that so hard and didn't take any damage from it. So at that point I decided that, oh, well, this is fantastic. I'd take my third base unimpeded and we'll just continue the match. So the Reapers continue to kind of bounce around, and they happen to see opponents sending, Marine tank Viking army at me. It's like, 2-3 tanks, kind of the standard push. But
Yeah.
I noticed they were coming down like the right side of the map. So I was thinking, okay, cool. I'll just move the Widow Mine over there. We'll bury it, and everything will be good. I'll kill a couple of Marines coming in. It'll be fine. Little did I know, the opponent was terrified of that mine and scanned for it previous to it. And it's the funniest thing to watch on the replay because the opponent walks up, scans, sees the mine, and immediately like beelines to the other side. And it did catch me off guard a little bit as I was landing my base. So I picked it back up. Thankfully, I already had siege tanks, and I kind of had an idea of where the opponent was going to attack me. So, they tried to move up into like so that they could siege into my main, and there are already siege tanks there. They popped all of those. A couple of ravens went in, cleaned up the rest of it, and I was psyched because like I'm taking very minimal damage. This is usually a part of TVT that I struggle with. Like I am killing it right now. I'm gonna take all of my stuff and just go across the map. Um, so I get across the map, and opponent is still scared because as soon as I got across the map, they put up a sensor tower as soon as I was crossing towards their base. So, they immediately react, they sieged up and everything. So, the very first thing I did was just like, oh, we're packing it up. We're going to rotate across the map. And they were trying to be greedy and take a fourth base. So I literally walked up, killed the base. They tried to push up the ramp to, dislodge my forces. And I just destroyed them and they left.
Oh, fantastic stuff. You and
Yeah.
your trusty Widow Mine.
Yeah, that's just going to be part of my TVT play from now on because that thing was a lifesaver.
I
Sounds like a
also like.
very
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, sounds like a very satisfying game.
It
Don't you
it
love it when
was.
everything goes your way in a game? It's a good feeling.
The funny thing was is that somebody in chat like popped in as I was finishing the match, and they were just like, "Did I just step into like the most one-sided TVT ever?" I'm just like, "Yeah, I guess so."
It
I think it's
happens.
hilarious too when you can tell how afraid your opponent is based on certain actions and choices they make. I personally love this when like I see a guy who just makes like 3 bunkers and I'm just like, oh, we don't even need to attack anymore. Like, and like who knows what that guy played in the last TVT? It might have been some mass mind craziness or something, but it's just funny too, where it's just like you could tell he's been burned by that mine already in that game and probably earlier in that day, if I had to wager. Um, but hey, that's a great dub. It's always nice when you have control too, and you feel like even though they're trying to do some weird like greedy thing to get back in, that if you have enough control, you just nip it in the bud, you know.
Oh, absolutely. All right, Dan, it's time for your ladder escapades. How has it been treating you?
But it's okay. Like here's
I
here,
hear that version of the okay. What's up, buddy? What's going on?
here's the thing is that so like look, we did the I'm coming back from a break episode last time, which is 2 weeks ago. And on that day, the previous day before that, I had a really good day. I crushed so many people in so many different ways. I was on top of it. Um, and then it slowly kind of worked its way back down. So I was at like 3.8 on that on 2 weeks ago from today. And now I'm back at like 3.6 ish. But I've been at 3.6 for a couple of sessions now, and it's hilarious because every time I start my session, I pretty much go like, "All right, it's the MMR recovery day," and then it's just like the same kind of like washout, like some good, some bad, and I'm just like, well, we're still 3-6. Okay. Like, and I'm just learning to be okay with that. And um, I'm realizing that there are certain mechanical things that are just not as automatic as they used to be. And I really think that's probably the biggest factor as far as keeping me at this MMR. And also sometimes I'm just trying dumb stuff, but I really do think it's just like mechanics and not getting 3.5 minute supply blocks or whatever. Like it's those things that are really beating me up the most, and I feel it, and I just need to I just need to be like, oh yeah, getting blocked at 44, not a good plan. Regardless of how you want to play the game, that is not a good plan. And it just it's those kind of mistakes that just keep they just keep happening, and it's up to me.
Yeah, that's rough to hear, man. I'm sorry about that. It's kind of funny because I also went on like after our episode, like I went on a really big losing streak coming off of my break. And I mean, we've all been there. We've all had those, you come off of a really good session and you just have a bunch of really bad ones. It is kind of just, part of the thing. Are you doing anything to kind of alleviate that? Are there any kind of drills that you're doing? Is there anything you're trying to focus on really hard whenever you're playing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest things I'm doing is I'm just trying to get the build ironed out a little bit more, and I'll talk about these games later too. But a lot of the games that I played with you too, where it was like I was focusing on certain things, mainly things like Overlord vision and Hellion zoning, and like just moving the queens in the right spot and preventing the dive and keeping the lings in the right spot. Like that whole creep dance was something I was really working on. But then I'm looking at the games and I'm like, I was supply blocked like twice while doing it. And while I think I did a great job zoning the Hellions, knowing where the Hellions are, getting the creep tumors down, swinging around to get the Hellions on the other side, swinging back around for the other side, like I thought that was all great, but I was like, I was supply blocked during it multiple times. So that probably shouldn't happen. It could have just been a lot better if I wasn't. But focus on one thing to fail at another, and that's pretty typical.
Yeah, I mean, it's like putting together a puzzle, honestly. Like the pieces will fall into place eventually.
Yeah, yeah. So again, I'm doing a lot of just build grinding and just just getting it back to where it was. Because again, I feel like I always try to get my build to be as automatic as possible, because then I can actually make strategic choices, right? And I can actually be like, let's do this or let's do this. Because if I'm just languishing about my early supply blocks, I don't really get anything else done.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any matchups that you're struggling with, or any that you feel really super confident in?
Uh, Not really. ZVZ's been giving me a lot of trouble. And it's one of these things too where it's like I'm a Ling Bane guy a lot of the time, and I just keep running into other Ling Bane people. And when that happens, there's always this weird awkwardness where it's like both of us want to be on the other side of the map, but one of us also should probably make the choice to stay at home and defend, right? And if you decide that too early, or you decide that while your opponent has already committed to be on the other side, then it's like it just gets weird, and it really just comes down to how the control and how the situation goes. And it hasn't been going my way, and I'm like, well, live by the bane, die by the bane. That's just kind of how you kind of have to accept that when you agree to the Ling Bane wars in ZVZ, and it's been beating me up, man.
Oh man, that's rough to hear. Well, I mean, I'm sure that you'll eventually you'll bounce back. Like it's only a matter of time, a matter of a little bit of more practice and
Yeah, yeah,
whatnot.
yeah. And I've been at this MMR before, so like I know how to get out of this MMR again. It's just not happening right now, but I'm also like it's fine. I'm not sweating about it. It's just the state of where I'm at, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the pesky MMR floor, the one that we don't want to talk about.
I think
But
it's
yeah,
pretty common to like anytime I take a break. I remember listening to your guys talk about taking a break and coming back with a fresh mind and new strategies and playing so much better. I'm like, what? That's the exact opposite of me. Every time I take a break, like my mechanics go to trash. I forget how to play Terran, and I just die to everything that my opponent does to me. So I always
Yeah,
drop like 100 or 200 MMR when I come back from a break. Even if I'm off racing, it's like, oh my god, how do you play Terran again?
I
So
do.
yeah, like I need to constantly be playing, or else it just all goes, to garbage.
Yeah, I do feel a little bad about that episode because I definitely was coming off of like a win streak and feeling really good about myself and just like, yeah, like coming off of the break is awesome. And then after that episode, just going on a lose streak, I'm just like, I hate coming back from breaks.
yeah. I think here's one of the things that I've kind of noticed is that it's this weird version of like I have like clarity sometimes in the strategic decisions, but what I'm realizing now is that my mechanics are just not good. Like that's just, and that's kind of the gatekeeper. Even though when I come back from a break, like I can think about the game better, like in the moment. Like I still like can't not get supply blocked the way I did before, And it's like
Yeah.
I don't know why they feel so separate sometimes, but it's definitely something I've noticed.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
yeah, I feel like there's kind of this happy medium that you get to eventually where you still have that kind of like clear mind, but you're also like shaking the rust off and you're just like you feel good whenever you're playing. Like you're nailing injects or your chrono boosts are always on time. Your bio splits are like perfect.
Yeah,
Um and you kind of have to like eventually you probably will hit that happy medium.
yeah. Yeah. Well, anyways, we'll go into the low light. The low light for me was, I mean, it was kind of weird. Uh, I picked it as so I won the game, but I picked it as a low light because it was just not a satisfying win. And just to give you the beat by beat, so like it was a ZVT. I think it was probably on Oxide, I want to say. But I did my roach pressure opener, and we did a lot. Like we we did some damage. I want to say I killed like 17 SCVs and like was just it's more than enough to win the game. And it's one of those where it's like, well, I guess he's gonna stay in the game. Okay, let's just play this out. So like I'm playing it out, but I will give my opponent credit is that he did everything right. That like he did everything that he should have been doing in that situation. And I was so lazy and sloppy because I did so much damage. I was just like, like the Liberator comes in, the Liberator kills like 6 drones, and I'm just like, it's all right. I have like 48 drones right now, and it's fine. And then like the Lib goes into another base and gets more than it probably should. And then like the Hellions dove into my third, and my queens were just out of position, and like it's all of this stuff where and then I get that thought in my mind where it's like, oh my god, am I throwing this? am I am I throwing this game? And because honestly, he did everything right, and like even the way he took his third was very like conservative and straightforward, and I don't know if he did this because of the situation, but I think it's the right call anyways. He was going for more of a mech composition, just to take his third. Honestly, like that's really, if you take that much damage, that's really your only option for surviving that long. Um, and I was worried because I know what it's like. Like once that mech player can like get like 8 tanks and like sit at 3 bases, your job becomes a lot more challenging. Um, and it was just it was just a mess, and I'm not happy with how I played it. We did manage to close it out just because he made a couple of mistakes with like how he extended his tanks, and again I had a lot of supply, so like I could throw Roach Ravager at it and it would be fine. But we killed some of the exterior tanks. We denied the third once, and then we denied it later, and then we were able to close it out there eventually. But it's one of these things too where I think my knowledge of the game situation kind of made me play lazy. You know what I'm saying? My knowledge that this game was basically won made me be really like, again, I had spores. They just I didn't take it seriously enough, you know? And like I had queens for defense, but like the Hellions just still got in, you know? And it's just funny because I feel like that stuff shouldn't happen. And good job to my opponent. He knew how to play from a deficit.
Yeah, those ones are always weird. Like I never know exactly how to feel because I know the exact ones that you're talking about where you take a little bit of damage, but you're just like, I don't care. I really don't care. I'm going to kill you in a few minutes here anyways. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was there a reason why you were feeling kind of like lackadaisical about the match, or you just felt
Yeah,
super confident?
yeah, I mean it's the amount of SCV. I saw the amount of SCVs that died in the beginning, you know, like I was there, you know, and it's one of those ones too where it's like I kill like two Hellions randomly as well. I killed all these SCVs. You know, I think I blew up a bunker too with corrosive bile just because I could, you know, it's extra money for me. And yeah, but good job to my opponent. He made me sweat. We got the win still, but I was very sweaty.
Is there anything that you would take away from that game?
I don't know. I think it also just kind of illustrates how some of like my basic fundamentals just aren't really there. Because again, I feel very solid in the fact that like if I'm that far ahead, I should take no damage. You know, like I should have enough queens and I should have enough vision to just make sure. Like even if he wants to YOLO the Hellions in, I should still be like right there. You know, um, and you know it's just a sloppiness thing, and we'll get it.
Yeah, for sure. What about the highlight? What have you got for us on that
Um,
front?
Yeah, so I don't have a specific game, but I was actually pretty happy with the series that we played the other day. Just because it was me playing Hydraling Bane, which like it's I haven't played it in forever. Like I used to play it all the time. Like even like I played it all throughout Platinum and like most of my lower diamond I played Lingbane all the time. And it was just kind of different to go back to it. Um, I also think it's good practice for me because it's mechanically a lot more challenging. Because as a Zerg, it's really just like, do you inject and do you spread creep? Like, and do you do those things very well? You'll be okay. Like you won't win the game, but like you'll be okay. And again, as someone returning from a break, I felt like my injects were so bad. Like, so I was like, hey, it's good practice for me to practice this, and it's a it's a solid style. So I felt like practicing it, and we played what like 4 games or something like that. I
I think
won.
it was 3.
Yeah, we played 3. I won the first one, then I lost the second two in pretty much the exact same way. um, but like I also when I looked at the replays too, just to like look at them generally. And the first game, if you're in my stream during the first game, I was probably just being like, yeah, this was reckless. Like like I felt like every droning decision I made in that first game was reckless. But when I looked at the replay, I'm like, no, actually, this is like proper ZVT droning. But it felt reckless because again, when you're doing roach, you don't need to press the drone key quite as stiffly, and you definitely don't need the fourth base economy. But I got it really quickly in that game, and that's the game I won, where I just had a lot of banes and we took some good engagements. Um, and then the last two, I was happy with them, minus a couple of things. The things I'll say I was really happy with and really impressed that I still kind of had the ability to do is the whole creep queen Hellion dance uh, game that you play in ZVT, because that's a very specific like micro mini game that you really you just have to be on top of a lot of different things. I feel like in that situation, and I felt great. I felt smooth, just really on top. Hellion's not even really making me worry just because I always knew where they were. I had the queens in the right spot. I had lings to punish if there's a dive. You know, it's that kind of thing. Um, but I was supply blocked pretty much every time. So it's like I did something great, but room for improvement. But again, I kind of expected that. Again, also because it's a slightly different style. And then the 2 games that I lost in the exact same way. So it's kind of a relief because it's something that's relatively easy to fix because I lost them pretty much the same way. I just made Ling Bane and then forgot to make more than 55 drones every time. um, because you can get away with that when you're making roaches. Like, who cares? It's not that big of a deal. But for Ling Bane, you just run out of money. And I'm like, oh, I was trading okay. I thought, I was getting okay Banelink connections, but it's like I literally have no money, and then I just die slowly. And you have 3-3 and just stim in, and I explode. You know.
Tell the people how many SCVs you killed in that last game.
Oh yeah, what was it? 100 something? 100.
115.
Oh yeah, I will
Oh
say
my god.
I felt great about run bys too, about map awareness, about engagement stuff. But again, I did all of these cool moves off of 55 drones, which
Yeah,
I do not recommend that at all.
as as somebody who was on the receiving end of that, like definitely like the 115 SCVs really put a damper on my mood during the game. There were also a couple of times where, you would run by, I'm just like, fuck, I knew he would do that. Damn it. And just,
Oh yeah. The run bys and the oh, he's gonna push now, so we'll just be ready for when he pushes. I felt very cool about that. And again, like that those kind of moves are the ones where I'm like, oh yeah, Ling Bane, it's fun. I remember that this is fun, and you're just blowing stuff up everywhere, diving bases here and there. But again, it's just a different style, and I'll probably keep working at it. But it's fun. It's fun.
yeah, for sure, man. All right. Do we have any other closing thoughts on our ladder experience? Anything at all, Shuyi?
Um, Nothing really comes to mind, but this is really insightful because I'm trying to learn my off races too, so I'm picking up a lot of Zerg tips here.
Oh yeah, very stylistic though. Don't take everything.
What about from you, Dan?
No, I mean, hey, the journey continues, the climb continues as it does,
Hey, that's our catchphrase. Um, all right. So tonight's topic is going to be about tournaments that aren't necessarily, your GSLs, your ESLs, and whatnot. We're going to be talking about kind of grassroots tournaments where, anybody from all walks of the StarCraft 2 ladder life can participate in them. And this has been a topic that we've been rolling around in our heads for quite some time, but we really wanted to bring on somebody who is fairly well versed. And Shuyi was definitely like one of the first people to pop in our mind. She's been playing in a lot of tournaments, and she's even won. So how many have you won at this point?
6
Yeah,
this year so far.
she's won 6
more than
diamond
I've played in.
tournaments. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Dan and I have dabbled in them a little bit. We play in the NSGSL. I've done Pika Pals and a couple of Berserk diamond tournaments. But Shuyi is like our resident expert on the topic. So we're super happy to have her in tonight. We're super happy that we can get to pick her brain a little bit and see kind of what, if you're diamond or if you're below diamond, like what can you expect if you hop into a tournament. So I guess the first question is, Shuyi, how do you find these tournaments?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the first tournament that I played in, was it the Pika-Pow? I don't know if I played in any. I No, I must have played in some. I think I played in. It's kind of all in the community and through networking. Pika-Pow was the first tournament I won, but before that, I played in these regular ones that the streamer called Najanix used to hold. He'd hold like Diamond 2, Diamond 1, Diamond 3, which was really nice because you see a lot of like open tournaments, which is all full of GMs, right? And then sometimes a Masters tournament, sometimes a Diamond tournament. But this guy had these bracketed off tournaments for people of very specific levels, so you actually felt like you had a good chance. And I think that's probably some of my first tournament experiences. That and NSGSL. It's funny because the first ones I play in, I take super, super seriously, and it's like, oh my god, my entire reputation's on the line. I can't disappoint everyone I know. But then after like the first, I don't know, 10 tournaments I play in, it's like, you know what? Nobody cares. I don't care. It's just like another custom against a stranger. or somebody whose name I've heard a few times. And like when you go in with that attitude where it's like I got nothing to lose but everything to gain, like it just makes it so much more natural to play because if you lose, nobody cares. Like who's watching? Nobody even knows that this exists. Like maybe three people who are in the tournament. And if you win, it's like, oh cool, I get either points or like small reputation gains or sometimes a little bit of money like $5 or $10. So like if you think of it that way, like you just go into it so much more relaxed. But
Yeah,
anyway, yeah, so it's mostly networking is how I find them.
one of the things that I thought was hilarious was that there was like this was months ago, but there was like a couple weeks where like I felt like every time I checked Twitter, Shuuyi was like, "Oh hey, I won another tournament, cool." And I was like, she is tearing up the diamond tournament scene. Like again, and they were like they would be tournaments that are like spaced out by like 3 days, and she's like, "Oh, I guess I won again." I'm just like, "Yeah, go get it, crush it." It was exciting, and that's also why I envision Shuyi as just this tournament destroyer. Um, and like, I have a question too. So like, do you remember being like really nervous for your first few?
I was so nervous. I even remember all my first opponents. I remember the one of the first ones, NSGSL, because like it's not just strangers anymore, right? Like these are my friends, my coaches, people I respect, and I really care about what they think. So I think that's why I cared so much about that one in particular. And when I had to play, I think I remember I had to play against Era and like there were a couple of really high stakes matches and when I won it was like the best feeling ever and whenever I lost a game it was like, no, how could I have let that happen? Um so yeah, yeah, those were they stick out in my memory a lot, but I think it's definitely higher pressure when you go into a tournament full of your friends than a tournament where it's all randos or people whose name you've heard once or twice. Because yeah, when it's a tournament full of your friends, it's like, well, I can't let these people down. I can't change their perception of me. It's definitely a little bit more pressure in those situations.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
it's actually weird that you say that because I actually do feel more stressed out during NSGSL, like playing in the NSGSL tournament than I do about any other tournament. And it's mostly there's about 20% fear of hitting Helium Bunny in the bracket, and I know she'll kill me. But it actually, because like these are people that you've practiced with, you know them very well. It's really hard to describe why it feels a little bit more stressful, but it is because you really feel like you have something more to prove to, like, your peers, your friends.
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, and I
The one
think
the one thing I'll say is I remember being so nervous. Like the first few times I ever like played like even the first thing I think I ever did that was like competitive or tournament ish was I did a show match with Aerette and I like my hands were literally shaking the whole time. Like I and like I'd felt that kind of nervousness before, like for like judo competition or like other like weird public speaking things, like huge levels of anxiety. And that persisted for like the first like two or three times I ever had like, quote unquote competitive matches with people. Like the first time I played my Natsugosu League matches, was a wreck. And like I kept like self-detonating my banes, which I think is the biggest like tell for me that I'm nervous because it just happens in my mechanics and like it also just shows how like frantic and terrified I was and it was it was brutal. But eventually, once I did a couple more, it really my ability to focus in a competition setting has changed so completely. Like I feel very good about it. Like I feel like I can go in with a plan, even if I don't think it's a good plan. I can go in with a plan and not be nervous. Like sure, I'm a little jittery maybe, but I'm not nervous in the like terrified way that I was before. And I think that if you're looking to join tournaments, I think it's good to practice that and to get that like uh terror out of your system because it does take some time, I feel like, and it takes some reps,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, I definitely agree and can relate to a lot of that. I think it took me a lot of tries in tournaments. I don't think I've ever won a Najanix tournament. He did a lot of, I think I joined a few Diamond 3, Diamond 2, even Diamond 1 tournaments because that's the cap, right? So even though I was below it, I joined it at the time. And yeah, I think I maybe have gotten close, maybe third place or but I definitely remember vividly like being really nervous, or and sometimes I do quite well, and then the times that I do well would be really encouraging for me to like, oh hey, I can perform well under pressure. And then yeah, it's just one of those things about I think I heard a quote once about confidence, like it comes with experience. You can't just have it out of nothing, right? So of course the first time you're in a brand new situation, you don't have confidence because you have no idea what it's like. But once you survive it and you come out of it with extra experience and knowing, hey, I survived it, I'm okay, and I even gained something from it. So once you get over that fear and you know the unknown, then it just becomes more natural, and the more comfortable you are in it, like it really pays off in your performance as well.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. So, I did have a question for you. Once you're in these tournaments, like usually you're going to have, like the bracket's going to be set up for you, and you're going to have a little bit of time to get a chance to kind of look for your opponents. And, um, well, I guess it depends, tournament to tournament. Like in SGSL, you usually have like a week to get your opponents, and you have some time. You have a lot of time, I should say, to actually scout your opponent and see like what do they like to play, what do they don't like to play, what do they struggle with. Um, Whenever it comes to scouting these opponents and seeing what they're weak to and preparing for stuff like that, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, I definitely think you should take any advantage you get, right? It's StarCraft is one of those games where we're trained to capitalize on any sort of advantage we can get, and if someone is gonna leave their match history open and not and show their build order, like what's gonna stop me from looking through their past games and looking at their build orders, right? If they don't think to hide it, why why should I not take that opportunity? So that's why anytime I do a custom for any reason, even if it's the most boring build, I will always hide my build order, which I realize if I play in ladder games, they'll still scout that. But if I can take away any advantage from my opponent, I'm gonna do it. So that definitely helps for people who I've never seen before. I'll go through their match history real quick, even if it's just 1 minute. I'll like quickly find one of the matchups that we're gonna play in, for example, like TVT or like PVT or something, and see what they do. And I'm like, oh god, this guy's a dirty proxy voider. So now, like, even if I saw one in their history, I'll be like, okay, now I have to like go through how do you defend. Like those seconds can make a huge difference. And so yeah, any sort of advantage you can get actually pays off big time. And luckily in the diamond tournament scene, a lot of people like we know each other, we're friends, or we played against each other. Even if we're not friends, we are very familiar with how each other's play styles are. So for example, I'll see a name and I'll be like, oh yeah, they're gonna roach rush me, or oh, they're gonna two-base muta me, or they're gonna either cheese or they're gonna macro. And even if you know, like, oh, are they gonna choose or macro? Because usually people fall into one or the other, rarely both. Even if you know that, that gives you such a huge advantage into like going into the game, how you're gonna play it. So yeah, I tend to know the diamond community pretty well, so anytime I see a player, I'm like, oh yeah, they're gonna proxy 2 gate, proxy void me. So like I'll still lose to it usually, but just knowing like the person and what they're gonna do, it actually makes a huge difference. So it's funny how the diamond tournament community is kind of like a larger version of NSGSL. Like after a while you get to know each other, and if you don't just look through their match history, like that's not against the rules, you're perfectly allowed to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually really good advice. I think you actually, yeah, I'm pretty sure you told me that before. And whenever I go into like new tournaments and stuff, I've kind of gotten into the habit of trying to like poke through really quick. Like even if you can see how long their average game is, can be a pretty big indicator. Because I remember
Mhm.
when I was doing my first Berserker Diamond League, I got matched with another Terran, and all I had to do is look through his match history real quick, and I saw that it was all of these like short games in customs. I'm just like, oh no. And I could, prepare a defense for, some kind of shenanigans. And I actually wound up winning my first match.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I think there's so many like flavors of player, like there's so many like, oh, he's a two base guy, or like, oh, he does a robo all the time or whatever. Like even knowing that, even if it's wrong, just having that information in your head, like it does amazing things for your expectations within the game. Even if it is surprising that they're doing something different, like even if you just know it's gonna be like a 3 base setup versus like he's a pylon forge guy or something. Like they're completely different like stances you have to assume as the player in there. And I'm guilty of this too, where I'm facing someone in the Natsugosu League, and I ask Healy like, "Hey, just give me the bullet points, just like what's their deal?" Like, because it's incredible. It's incredible information, and it also can frame your preparation.
Yeah, definitely. And most people in Diamond League, we're not like pro players who know every new build and are making up our own creative build, right? Like we usually stick to our comfort zone in a tournament. We want to win. So people, if they're strong at cheesing, they're gonna cheese you. If they're a strong macro player, they're gonna macro. They might pull out one trick, but at the end of the day, people stick with what they're good at. So if you kind of know what a person's like they're pretty easy to counter when you go into a tournament match against them.
So I want to pull on that thread just a little bit. Um, would you say you've become a more well-rounded player from tournaments, or have you tried to just kind of stick to your guns and be a macro player?
Definitely. I think that's probably what's helped me the most actually because in tournaments, especially when I was losing a lot at the beginning in the Nijanics tournaments, I would watch the people who cast my replays and watch when they say, "Oh yeah, she's not doing this. That's not how you respond to that." I'm like, "Okay, well now I'm gonna work on how to respond to this." And I haven't died to a roach rush in a long time. So that was the example of what they were criticizing my build on. And then so like just playing in tournaments and you die to all sorts of weird stuff because people tend to be cheesy in tournaments, right? They'll do weird builds to throw you off and me just like being really working on I'm just constantly trying to work on ways to not die to things because that's how you get better. So as I've played in more tournaments, I've found out more common builds and cheeses to try to counter. And so I have very specific scouting timings now, and like I know how to deal with very specific cheeses. And so yeah, just being more bulletproof, I guess, to things that people in Diamond League can throw at you. I think that's probably improved my gameplay more than anything else. Well, there are other things like sharpening my builds and just making sure my macro is on point and grinding like micro trainer and stuff like that. But playing in tournaments has kind of brought it all together too because at the end of the day, like you can have a good build, you can be good at micro, but like what does it take to win? Like you gotta know your opponent, you gotta know what it takes to win a specific game and just being exposed to various playstyles and various builds, I think that's definitely helped me tighten up like my overall gameplay a lot. So yeah, I think it's helped me quite a bit.
Have you tried to kind of throw in any cheeses whenever you play if you know that somebody tends to be particularly weak against cheese, or
Yeah. Yeah, so the last time I won against Benefit in the Pico Pow tournament, which I feel terrible for, because people usually know me as a macro player, and sometimes I'll lose to a stupid cheese and I'll get really mad about it, as most people do once in a while, but then we get over it and realize that cheese is just a part of the game. But so I was playing against Benefit, who's a very, very strong player. He did end up making Masters really soon after that, or before that, I don't remember. But anyway, so he went into it completely thinking I was a macro player because throughout the tournament, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, Shuuyi's a macro player. She does well in the late game. She's not a dirty cheeser." And what do? I cheese him every single game except the one game that I lost against him. And somehow I won the series against him, and I was like, "What? That's it?" Like it felt too short because I threw so many cheeses and they all worked because it completely blindsided him. And yeah, I feel really, really dirty about it. But he was a good sport. He didn't care. He's like, that's just part of the game. But I was like, oh, I'm a terrible person. But in a tournament, like you do what it takes to win. And if they don't see that as a possibility at all, then that's kind of in your favor.
yeah, it
Yeah, I
sounds like
have
it really
I
did.
have I have two things. I have two things I really want to say. So one, I love that because I also love Scarlet, and Scarlet is, I think she does the best job of making people expect certain things and giving them another thing, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, Scarlet, she loves like 85 drones and just, all queens and like no units, and but she can also do random cheeses that just kill people who are trying to cut corners, right? And I think that's such a powerful tool when you're going into a series. And it's also like that you get to put on that little cheeky grin when you pull off a win from it, and it's so fantastic. And this is the other thing I want to say is that as an example, for myself, look, I am a mostly macro person. I don't like I'll do a, aggressive openers or whatever, but like I don't like the cheeses, like the super early cheeses, because as a Zerg it hurts you a lot, and I don't enjoy that. But I made it to the semifinals one time, and I was like, we're gonna 11-12 all the time. Who cares? I'm very willing to sell out my macro morality if I'm that deep in a tournament, because I also knew the player I was playing. I was playing Sappho, and very scary Zerg, very intimidating macro capabilities, and I'm like, this is my best path. If I do 12-11 Lings and Banes as fast as I can get them, I stand a good chance. And I was happy with it, and I didn't feel bad at all.
Yeah, honestly, it's a smart strategy. Like if you, and that brings up another point. Like Benefit's obviously a really solid all-around player, very strong macro, very strong late game, and you do not want to play a TVP late game with a very strong, very good Protoss player.
Oh yeah,
So I think that was another reason why I choose A. He didn't expect it. B. I didn't want to play him in the late game.
yeah,
So yeah, it's good to. I think the nice thing about a tournament player is it's like a meta version of a StarCraft game, because not only is it one StarCraft game, it's a series. So you got to think about like how do I want to plan the series of games, and not just going into the game what do I want to do, but like you think of them as a player and like how can I take the series from them. And so yeah, it's a lot of fun.
yeah.
It's actually
Shaping for a series is very different than shaping for one ladder game, and um, it's fun. Like I really enjoy it when I'm prepping for tournaments too, because it's also like I can be like, all right, on this map, I like to do this. But if I get this map for game one, I'm gonna do this to set the tone. Like I'm gonna do my most crazy build on this map if it's game one, because that's what I want to do. And I always love playing around with that stuff. It makes me feel like a pro gamer, and I feel supremely cool when I'm like, all right, game one, here's the plan. Game two, we're gonna hit him with this. And like even if it doesn't work, I just feel cool. So like that's also one of the things where I'm like, yeah, just go out for tournaments. Like it's fun in that way. Even if you're losing, or even if you're planning out like dumb builds, like it's still a lot of fun, and it's still very rewarding. And again, we're all just trying to live action role play as professional gamers, and it's a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. So once you've kind of done some mental prep work for your tournament matches, especially if you know your opponent ahead of time, uh, what do you do to actually prepare for it, to like physically prepare for it?
Yeah, to be honest, a lot of the tournaments I play in, it's kind of like I join last minute, and I see who my opponent is like a few minutes before the games begin. So it's not really like the NSGSL where you have like a full week to prepare for each opponent that you know you will be up against. So I guess just playing ladder is my main way. The only exception is kind of like the weekly, like the DLC, for example, the Diamond League Championship. Sometimes you'll have like three people you have to play in a week, or one person you have to play in a week. And only if I'm really scared of what they're gonna bring to the table, then I'll specifically practice something I'm weak at. For example, Proxy Void, which I've probably practiced like 10 hours of my life on that already. But yeah, no, otherwise I just go into it like not even knowing who I'm playing until like 10 minutes before the match starts. So yeah, most tournaments you don't really know who your opponent is until right before it starts.
It's actually funny that you mentioned DLC, because I remember that we met during one of their finals, and that my entire prep work was just like, I have to be the best macro Terran player.
Yeah, it definitely helps for sure if you know exactly who you're playing against. But sometimes I have so many tournaments going on, and then I join one last second. So yeah, unless it's like a specific person who I've never beaten before, and I know what they're gonna do, and I never win against it. Like usually I'll just go into it like just like, oh, I guess we'll just try our best today and see what happens.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I'm on the side of like I love the preparation part of it, and it's like for if someone were to ask me like, "Hey Dan, do you want to play in this tournament tomorrow?" I would be like, "No." Like I just need more like time to like mentally process that I'm like playing competitive matches in StarCraft, because like I don't know, I just need that. And again, I think it's also because I do a lot of the not the NSGSL stuff where I have so much time to like digest it and like think about it and think about like the possibilities. But if someone was like, "Hey, do you want to play a best of 3 tomorrow?" I'd be like, "I'm okay." like and that's a very me thing where it's like I just need to think about it. Even if I know the player or if I'm not going to know the player, I still just need time to just be okay with the idea of it. So I'm impressed when you can just be like, "Oh, yeah, I'll play in it." Sure.
Like I said, it's just desensitization. Like after a while, you realize that there's really nothing to lose and nobody really cares. So if you win, that's great. If you lose, nobody cares. So once you get that attitude out of it, it's like, yeah, it's like nothing. You just play it, and it's just another weeknight.
Yeah, so I guess another follow-up question would be would you, since ladder matches and tournament matches are wildly different comparatively, they're completely different. Would you recommend lower league players to find a tournament that they might be interested in and compete in it?
Yeah, I think it wouldn't hurt. Like I said, you don't really have anything to lose. Like I get initially it's pretty scary, like the prospect of your friends finding out that you got in a tournament and maybe like dropped out in the first match or whatever. But yeah, I guess I think earlier Dan mentioned something about, oh, it like brings back feelings of public speaking and just like nervousness and everything. And that's funny because I remember this is really different from StarCraft, but I I've done stand-up comedy for like multiple years and I haven't done it in 2 years because of the pandemic, obviously, and I moved to a place where there's no stand-up comedy. But I'm I feel really comfortable on stage and I love stand-up comedy. I love the skills I've learned from it and like I said, how like at first it's really scary, but then you realize that nobody really cares. Like even if you bomb in front of a room full of like 15 people at an open mic, like they're gonna cringe, but then they're gonna go home and like think about dinner and like immediately forget that you even exist, right? So the only person that's feeling the humiliation is you. And if you can get over that easily because you're doing what you love and it's really important to you that you're gonna get better at this, then then you're just benefiting from it and you're not really losing anything. So I think even if you're a, lower level player, like, I don't know, silver or something, like, obviously there's a lot of areas to improve, right? And if there are tournaments available, like, yeah, there's nothing you can lose by joining. It'll probably be fun. Like the casters will probably roast you, and then you can watch the replay and learn what to get better on, and then you'll get over that nervousness a little bit, which we all get on ladder sometimes as well. So the more comfortable you feel playing in high stakes situations, that's only going to help you because then the less nervous you feel, the more clearly you're going to think, and the more natural you're going to feel. And so if you can get that confidence either from a tournament or play more ladder, like yeah, I definitely think you should go for it if that's something you're not feeling like you're going to lose too much from. Like I guess some people might feel nervous about it, but if in the end like you care more about having fun and improving, then yeah, then go for it for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think there's a huge amount of benefits for going out for competition. And like I didn't even really believe that until I did it. Like I didn't believe that there was that much to gain for me from it because I was like, oh, whatever, I'm diamond. Who cares? I'm bad. I'm bad at the game. It's the stuff we always say. But it's like the gains that I have made from doing competitive matches with other players is tremendous. And I also think you can surprise yourself with how capable you are in certain situations. Because I know I have certainly pulled out wins in competition that I would have never imagined possible. And very satisfying games, more satisfying than I could ever have anticipated. And it's one of these things too, where it's like now I'm just like, if someone asks me like, "Hey, should I do this tournament?" I'm like, "Yeah, do it." Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? You get own 2'd and then move on with your life, like, or maybe you have a sick run and you impress yourself and you pull off amazing things. So I totally agree with that.
I'd just like to
Yeah.
shout out my wait, was I was like third place in the first Shuuyi showdown, right? Anyways, I just
That's
wanted
a
to
really
flaunt.
impressive
Oh,
finish.
I wanted to flaunt that real quick.
No, I remember getting eliminated from that tournament and then like checking the bracket and just being like, "Oh, Will's still going and he's tearing it up. He's
Yeah.
tearing it up." I was so pumped. It's just so satisfying to see one of your friends just like slugging their way through the bracket and like, oh
Oh
yeah, no, it's
yeah.
great.
Like
It's great.
honestly, like casting the two of you going through like the NSGSL brackets, like it genuinely pumps me up. I mean, I feel pumped up, cheering everybody on. I have to remain impartial as a caster, but like, you know, getting to see your friends like really fucking, whoops, really, kick ass. It's there's a certain joy to it.
Yeah, and like I've pulled off like I had a series versus Brad in the group stage, and I had such low expectations. I was like, nah, it's Protoss. I was struggling versus Protoss super hard in every imaginable fashion, um, but it it went my way. Brad didn't practice his 12 pool response, and I had a great start in every game from that. And I still can't believe that I like won that series the way I did. Like it's incredible when you go into a series with low expectations, but you still have a plan. Like I still had a plan for the games and for the maps and for, what I would do if I see certain things, but I had no idea it would work as well as it did. I'm still surprised.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
absolutely.
really awesome. Congrats on that victory.
All
Thank
right,
you, thank
guys.
you.
All right, guys. Do we have any last thoughts on how tournaments can relate to lower league players? Shuyi, we can start with you.
Um, no, I guess I said everything on the topic that I have thoughts about. Yeah, just do it. If you have any interest in it at all, just go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well put. Dan, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree, just do it. But, it's also just it's a great experience. And even if you do it and you're like, it's not for me, I think that's fine. But I do really recommend doing it. And also like I think some of the like when you play StarCraft, right, we're all kind of in the zone, like we're all focused and in the game. But I've played competitive matches where like I have reached a flow state beyond my mortal comprehension and like legitimately like doing things in the game I did not know I was capable of. Like there was a map or two I played versus Sappho where I'm pretty sure it was one of the greatest games I've played in my life, and every decision like made sense as I made it, and I didn't have to think about it as I made it. Like it was incredible. Like it's a feeling that like I have rarely experienced in my life, but all through competition.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I'll just mirror what these guys have been saying. Just do it. You never know what's gonna happen. You could have a sick run. You could have, some hilarious things happen. I mean, everybody's kind of there to have a little bit of fun. You could also meet some really cool people. I mean, I met some of my best StarCraft 2 friends through, NSGSL and doing a little bit of, casting and competing there and practicing and whatnot. But definitely take the time to just try a tournament. Just try one and see what you think of it. If you enjoy stuff like doing research on your opponents, or if you just kind of like want to just throw your hat into the ring and just see what happens. I couldn't recommend enough to go ahead and try and get into a tournament.
Oh yeah, the one thing I wanted to add is it's a great way to find practice partners as well, which
Yes.
like is a tremendously valuable thing to find. Just because you'll find people who are down to play some games whenever, and again, that's I feel like I should throw that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a fantastic way to find some practice partners. All right, and with that, I guess we can go ahead and conclude episode 8 of The Climb. Shuuyi, thank you so much for coming out tonight and getting the chance to talk to us. We've been thinking about this one for a while. Are you doing anything uh up and coming? Do you have any big streams planned or
Oh, I was thinking of holding like a kind of a clown fest tournament where players are rewarded for bounties for doing crazy things like most unique cheese or fewest workers made that resulted in a win. Stuff like that. So that might be up in the horizon in the next month or so, but yeah, it'd be cool if you guys joined. But
Oh, I'm 100% on board with that. That sounds like a lot of fun. There we go. There we go. There's a fun first tournament for some of you guys.
yeah, and thank you so much for having me. I'm a huge fan of the podcast, so yeah, I really love to listen to them as soon as they come out. So it means a lot to me to be invited. So thank you so much.
Yeah, we're so psyched that we could actually get you out. It's been a pleasure. Dan, my man.
Yeah, so again, I just want to thank Shuuyi for being here. Congratulations, you have been our first guest. And you can flex that wherever you want, but you were a great choice for the first one. We were very happy to have you on. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to do it. And also, your support as a listener is also greatly appreciated because, in the pre-show, she was like, "Oh yeah, I've listened to every episode." And I'm like, fantastic. That's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it
Um,
means a lot.
but yeah, so anyways, for me, yeah, hey, I'm streaming on Twitch. I'm making YouTube stuff here and there as well. I just made a video about hotkeys. It's more intended for beginners or people who are looking to get into the game. Um, and I'm still gonna be putting out some videos. I might do one where I'm just gonna get like overly technical with hotkeys, not because I think my hotkey setup is good, but because I think it's just interesting to talk about. So that'll be down the road. But anyways, you can check me out on Twitch or on YouTube for the most part.
All right, awesome. Yeah, definitely check out his YouTube. He's been putting up some rather fantastic stuff. I actually can't wait for his next the hotkeys video. And with that, I've been Will, Lord Cranial. You can find me here on Twitch. I do have a Twitter. Definitely check that out if you get a chance. Also, The Climb. You can find us, well, if I type it right, it'll be fine. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the VODs will go up on YouTube. You can follow any of those links. And yeah, we'll be there. But that's going to be all for us tonight, guys. Thank you so much for coming by. Thank you so much for listening. And once again, big shout out and thanks to Shuuyi for being our first guest. It's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys again. And it was really, really fun. And yeah, really happy to have this experience.
Yeah, and with that, good luck, have fun on the ladder. Uh, try out a tournament if you get a chance, and we will see you later.